A recent dip in tourism is shaking up the Strip, and it's the casino dealers who are paying the price.
Even with big conventions and major events, Las Vegas is seeing fewer tourists, and they're spending from hotels to casinos to flights. The numbers are down across the board.
Las Vegas is emptying out right now, fast. And that's no accident for the city built on endless lights and dreams. For years, the Strip pulsed with that irresistible aura. Dirt cheap buffets, free parking everywhere, bottomless cocktails flowing like they were on the house. It was the thrill of feeling like royalty, no matter if your wallet was thin or stacked, but behind those glittering doors, it's crumbling at breakneck speed. Wall Street's invasion is abolishing the old rules, with boardroom suits greenlighting moves that are ripping the soul from Vegas before our eyes. Wake up, what's really happening? Can't wait another second.
If you don't have gamblers, right? You don't need as many dealers, let's say. You don't need as many tables open.
In this video, you will see a former casino boss that sat in those uncomfortable boardroom meetings and watched it all crash down. He discloses that this wasn't just some accident. It was a calculated disembowelment of what made Las Vegas vibrant and alive. And the emptiness is a reminder of the truth that we can no longer ignore. Now, picture the Las Vegas Strip in its heyday, far before these greedy charges and astronomical prices robbed the Strip of its life. Back then, it was as if the city put a crown on your head the moment you stepped out of your car. Whether you arrived with a few bucks to spend or a whole pile of money, Las Vegas made the grind of day-to-day life completely fun. The lights shone brilliantly, the dealers seemed to smile, the casinos kept directing complimentary items that made you feel like breaking even was just as good as winning. Guests would come in with little to no money, and a little while later, they would leave feeling like they own Vegas. That is no accident. The casino's old school leaders always knew that if you treated someone special, they would return the favor with a tidal wave of money.
Layoffs, Resorts World announced some layouts. We want those casinos to be very active, successful, and robust because that gives our break-in dealers an opportunity to transition, right?
The old casino strategy was that simple, and it's vanishing before we can save it. Dish out cheap eats, pour endless booze, comp rooms, and turn every loss into a feel-good story. It wasn't about draining your wallet dry, no way. The real aim was making you the star, so who cared about a few bucks slipping away? Those legendary buffets earned their fame for a reason. Stacked with prime rib, crab legs, shrimp galore, all for pocket change. Casinos ate the tiny costs, knowing stuffed, grinning guests would flood the slots and tables, cash in hand. For struggling families and budget travelers, that pull was ironclad. Vegas roared escape, drawing us like moths to a flame. But act now, or that flame dies out forever.
So we've seen our enrollments drop, interest in becoming a dealer. We used to have a lot more people transition from out of state and sort of hear about Vegas, the opportunity that was here.
The city throbbed with raw, unstoppable energy sidewalks, exploding with laughter, endless buffet lines, lounges clinking with ice in every glass. That buzz wasn't manufactured. It breathed on its own, with thrills bouncing from group to group, making the whole strip roar like a living beast. Stories ignited like wildfires, a heartland factory worker, a coastal single mom, all diving into dreamland for a fleeting escape. Generosity fueled it all. Free parking, bargain shows, cheap eats, sparking loyalty that poured back tenfold. This cycle built empires, transforming one-timers into die-hard fans, with families handing down the ritual like holy tradition. Vegas peddled more than beds it sold belonging, that vital spark in the mad world. Hurry, don't let it vanish right now.
We're starting to see things like airline bookings and future hotel bookings starting to drop somewhat, both internationally and domestically.
But darkness came as time flew by, and with the encroachment of cold-blooded selfishness, a kind heart fought for survival. To those who had no context, generosity seemed outdated, even wasteful. Why offer one you could take? This logic didn't arise from the veterans of Vegas. They slithered in from the nonchalant outsiders with their charts whose terminology lacked any soul for the game. Chasms formed quickly. Foundations were compromised below the curiosity of greedy hands. The Strip, barely a factory of dreams to begin with. Cracked piece by unreplaceable piece. We have a sense of urgency now, because if we don't wake up, the Vegas we believe is real will find itself discarded forever. Now, Wall Street's gaze locked onto the desert hedge funds and corps storming in, seizing casinos that once ran on pure impulse and time-honored tradition. Veteran execs, masters of buffets and free Wi-Fi, got drowned out by slick suits babbling about revenue spikes and hypergrowth. Zero real experience under their belts. Talks flipped from fun and feels to cold numbers. Profit per square foot, margins per head, quarterly jumps dictating every move. The Strip? No longer a dream, just an asset to squeeze dry. This shift hit like a hurricane, and we're all hearing the howl in today's ghostly walkways. Hurry, the confession exposes this betrayal's depth, and time's running out to stop it.
Rising resort fees and hotel fees, and of course, the expenses associated with dining and live entertainment in this economy where there's uncertainty.
It started with resort fees. A polished presentation in boardrooms promised a sea of easy money. Consultants flashed slick presentations urging operators to charge for items that had previously been free, and even though some felt uneasy and anticipated pushback, tests showed guests just accepted it. A casino jumped in, and then it seemed like a tidal wave. Every property a la carte resort fees for almost everything, converting something once sacred into a profit line. Parking quickly followed as a hotel resort fee line item, an industry standard as iconized as a neon sign, now monetized under the guise of protecting the guests from suicide. The PowerPoint presentations, mostly financial forecasts predicting millions made a year annually, buried all the grumbling to operate a hotel. The lifeblood of the industry further dimmed, and the urgency saying this greed spiral must stop came in a clear message, before it was too late.
Tourism is the lifeblood of Las Vegas, but lately that lifeline has been thinning. From April to May, visitor numbers dropped nearly 6%, and the effects are rippling through the industry.
Food and drinks had to be next, where even iconic buffets like the 999 buffet were bleeding cash and trying to maximize profit. Prices went from a modest amount to amounts that could make anyone go into a state of hysteria. Free pour became premium, every bit of kindness repackaged into a reimbursable nicety, and the give-to-get hospitality model died under the pressures of raking it all in. Executives realized they must do what is best for the bottom line, even hurting their longtime members of the team to survive. Some tried to fight against a beast, while others gave permission to be taken place of adapt or die, and that day-to-day management dilemma rang loud and clear. The retired chairman reluctantly stated that he gave up, and his signature showed a total disregard about killing the magic. But did his duty knowing now dictated we must or else? Public opposition intensified with each price increase, anger and headlines noting the demise of Las Vegas, but guests continued to attend, paying with reluctance. This resistance only fed the beast and signaled that there was no limit to push. The Strip changed dramatically, morphing from inclusive playground to fee-riddled snare. Guests began moving from being treated like royalty to being financially fleeced at every turn. The magic was stripped away, decision by decision, crossing lines of no return. There's urgency because the heart of Las Vegas is hanging by a thread, and we can no longer ignore the hollowing out.
That's our bread and butter. We need gamblers. There's shops and food and everything else to do, but we really need those gamblers to come back, and those gamblers react to better values.
The Strip once burst with volume, success measured by occupancy and gambling levels, not just elite spenders. It didn't care if you put $5 into a slot machine or lingered at one of the low-price snack bars operating 24/7. The sheer volume produced momentum that could not be stopped. Energy rippled to and from everyone. Modest bets with new bets and stolen dice turned into occasions filled with big teammates and group spending sprees. Then, Wall Street took over, focused on a few money-spending guests, instead of financial successes operating among large groups. Why would you pack in hundreds spending little when you can turn in dozens who dump many more dollars with the opportunity of not having the same probability of winning? The math was tempting, but we now hear the death knell in empty streets, with urgency called awakening of guests.
Hotel occupancy rates have also declined, we've been reporting, with a drop of 1% overall in April and a larger decrease specifically for the hotels downtown of 2.6%.
Costs declined with lesser crowds, profits remained flat or increased, and investors were ecstatic, oblivious to the vibe's disintegration. The atmosphere was not numbers and figures. It was the collective heartbeat of a crowd, mingling families with Midwestern charm, with undercurrents of chaos and mayhem from the bachelor party crowd. The sidewalks were alive, the energy built from cheers. All of that collaboration calls everyone in. Now, as many hotels pivot, the collective pulse ebbed away. The neon lights illuminating empty spaces. High rollers became gods, attracted with exclusives denied to everyone else, while mediocrity and low-rolling perks disappeared. Success on paper, but the universal appeal of the strip fractures. Hurry. The narrative concerns guiding us to the confessional notes about the costs that are now permanent. The retired boss identified the syphilis, high rollers chase whims and grab deals. The chalk will flock to greener pastures for something fresher. The middle class is loyal, highly loyal, and anchored to the strip, their faith now splashing in anonymity behind price walls. They now have alternatives, better crowd experience, cheaper prices, no gouging, same crap. Now that you are inside the casinos, the losses sting harder, losses that came without any freebies, punches to the gut heads of thrill, disgust and bitterness, not joy, trust eroding. The floors became quiet after the laughter. He watched it play out, profits masking the spiritual famine, the urgency echoing in his tone in warning. The goose is nearly cooked.
It's hard because if you drop the fees, you're probably going to drop the service and the quality as well, so it's a bit of a double-edged sword.
This catastrophe mirrors the brutal squeeze on America's middle class. Las Vegas once stood as their ultimate escape, a yearly taste of luxury on shrinking budgets. Corp spotted that fragile promise of feeling elite without breaking the bank and pounced to cash in. It started sneaky with fees, ballooning into a feast of gutted perks. We weren't crying wolf, but the outrage built like exhaustion, with cuts hitting like emotional gut punches, forever warping the welcoming vibe into velvet rope exclusion. Trips now cost triple, driving families away for good. The boss realized too late the bridge to that crowd burned, wiping them out before reinvention could spark. Time's ticking. That urgency is crushing the Dream Act fast or lose it all.
Through the summer slump, we know that a lot of the resorts on the Strip and the hotels downtown have been suffering because of the lower visitor numbers. So how are the locals casinos doing? Because their market is already here.
The fickleness of high rollerness and definition to the bones of that gamble was always checkered. There were not roots in the sand, there were merely shadows cast in brief, billowing moments of glorious patron. Moving to high relevance wants tradable stability for risk. It costs us middle-class generations, which at the fuller extent also represents the broader squeeze. Air travel fees, supermarket tickets fees, hotel rooms themselves not only add costs of stay, but also radically change the overall and imprinted experience of everyday patrons. It also simply hurts deeper in the very experience that Las Vegas once represented. These bright lights and lifelike energy turned on, beats minus the hum of another human life and divided by or positive ghost energy to keep the magical Strip alive like they have was at risk from the demons of covetous greed and small town corresponding urges. The irony triumphs fairness, namely the builders, the perished ones, the Madev classic dreamy pilgrimage to a big-time Las Vegas flame.
Look, I mean, we can take this back in time for a long period of time. There's no doubt that what's sort of given rise to some of the concern is the fact that tourism is down and visitor spending is down.
The manager feels profound regret. He acknowledges his own role in exchanging magic for margin. He could have reacted with more vigor, but fear of getting fired held him down. He left in disgust. Meetings had become lifeless for him, happiness buried in spreadsheets. He left to protect himself. He loves the city, but laments what has happened to it. He is predicting a dark fate. Short-term gains can lead to long-term consequences, especially if there is no loyalty. There will be some hope if there is courage to reverse it, to return value it has lost. And he is begging for speeding change with his statement of reinvention could save it. This is not just about this man. It is about a system's failure, growth over wisdom. This is one of the more honest statements. It utilized the failures because it is honest. Vegas is at war with itself. Neon magic of a city for hollow shine. The caution sign is clear. Keep going and we will lose our soul. He hopes it's there that magic bounces back. But the people of Vegas' verdict remains. Their Vegas will no longer be. That is the urgency to finally act before it's too late.
I think that in the summertime especially, like this is a time when everyone's traveling and wanting to come to Vegas and party and stuff, but I'm noticing like it seems a little bit less crowded than I've noticed in the past.
Yet, beneath its gloom, Las Vegas flickers with a spark of reinvention. It emerged from the desert dust, repeatedly overcoming the odds. Power brokers must muster the guts to revive the magic of the middle class, and that means moving from spreadsheets and systems to the heart and soul. What say you? It's doomed, or it can be saved? Comment below, you are the evidence of the struggle. Subscribe for more trust. The Las Vegas story smolders with darkness ahead. Hurry, don't miss it.
When we compare June this year compared to June last year, and frankly, I think, and we've talked about this a bit before, I think the empirical data that's recently been released is just a reflection of.
Now let's dive deeper because the urgency increases. Las Vegas is living on the edge of collapse and we cannot look away from it. Imagine particularly glorious days when the strip was open to all, no lines, and just pure joy. Valet parking was free, the parking lots were full of cars, buffets were steaming, and you could eat all you could from a full wall of food for less than $10. If you played, there were no tabs on drinks, and you could meet new friends for a lifetime. Families jumped from restaurant to restaurant for cheap eats over the weekend and turned them into memories. That access and exclusivity was the machine, but now it is rapidly fraying around the edges, and we have a duty to peel back the layers to show what is hiding.
We've dealt with a number of these type of instability moments in our history, right? We certainly could go back to the events of September 11th, 2001 and what happened immediately after that when there was large.
Wall Street's impact was not subtle. It moved in like a desert storm developing into a much bigger storm. Essentially, everything was transformed into a profit. Traditional executives were resistant, but they were drowned in suits with data and a business philosophy that revenue was good and experience was a footnote. The tilt shifted from casinos being generous hosts to extractors when incidence fees began popping up like thieves in the night. Once the tipping point happened, things accelerated to where we are now. Time will tell, but reading this report, the urge is great to remember and feel like the boss's story lays out how deliberate this dismantling really was. Resort fees were the first domino on the way down. Consultants tried pitching resort fees. Even when pushback materialized, many doubted its profitability, since guest surveys had proven guests were willing to do this trickle without awareness. Testing offered little resistance, fees didn't really matter, guests paid, and therefore meant adoption and revenue explosion. Parking, once considered free, now resides outside with projected dollar signs hinting at riches. Resort buffet prices no longer had the bargain luster, menus were chopped to remain profitable, changes were endless. For time will tell, but remember and feel, urgency emerges that these are not adjustments, but a complete gutting.
The tourism industry is our single largest employer and our single largest payer of wages and salaries. And I think as some people have a tendency to forget, the biggest generator of taxes, both at the state and local level.
The middle class was impacted the hardest, priced out of their playground. What once cost hundreds now cost thousands, different options pulling them away. Loyalty is being lost, families not going as previous generations did. The high rollers momentarily fill the gap, but their whims end up creating gaps. The boss noticed crowds thinning and excitement evaporating from the venue. Even now, with tourism dropping, the height of worry starts asking for action. New numbers indicate a terrible downturn, visitations dropping over 10% and occupancy rates plunging. Hotels are lowering rates, but fees remain, creating angst. Buffets have disappeared and replaced with overpriced dining rooms that limit ways to afford food for every budget. Employees are left scraping, layoffs affecting dealers as floors stop buzzing. The boss admitted to his share, stuffing in his pocket, removing success from the skin. The surge of pressure has increased. At this pace, no one will be able to save Vegas.
So I think, RJ's belief that we're no longer thinking about what consumers want is maybe from his point of view, maybe he needs something.
Can you envision walking the strip today in the time of now, with the void replacing the buzz that was there? The lights are flashing on the sidewalks, and you hear the silence blasting. When the sidewalks were filled with families, a few wealthy people dashingly arrived. The heart of someone who cares, aches, and yearns for buzz, for generosity, and gives confidence it could happen as long as the leadership hears the info. Hurry up. Do you think Vegas is savable? Feel free to send a page or two about your thoughts on it.
The second quarter was an exceptional one for the company by every measure. Our Las Vegas operations delivered its highest quarterly net revenue and adjusted EBITDA in our 49-year history.
To build on what the old-timers taught us, they understood psychology more than anything else drives the wins. Make guests feel valued. And they will spend, quite to the contrary of the cheap so-called perks makes them feel like they're getting value, lessening their wallet, tightening efforts. People amplified the surroundings and created an energy all its own and continued to feed into the experience. The corporate policing would only see waste and come down with an axe and win taking margins up. That's the scornful thief in the moment. When appreciated, value can linger. Rushing to take it back stings, but I have an urgency to recover it. The hold from Wall Street tightened during the late 60s. Corporations gobbled up assets like Hilton's, surely flowed behind the mob money, planting mega resorts. But the bigger you got, the more removed you became from accountability to the guest. The strip became a corporate space, losing the edgy charm. The boss was watching, signing the signs on the dotted line and said it all unless you were counting in dollars. And now emptiness, but wanting reversal before it went their ingredient altogether.
The resort fees, I didn't know I was on a resort, but I'm paying resort fees.
And resort fees, they are now approaching $50 per day to cover basic amenities like Wi-Fi, which used to be free. Junk fees, critics call them, they usually come disguised traps to add costs. Biden's push to battle them calls out a sham. Too many tourists, frankly, don't hold time on indignation like the old-timer does. The negative impacts are rapid tourism. The boss admitted that they knew what to expect, but they pushed it through anyway. I sense an urgency, either do something to reject it, or watch the decline to the abyss accelerate.
You're going to find out very quickly that people don't want to pay $70 for parking.
Once unimaginable, parking fees are now the norm and add insult to injury. Newspapers said convenience would die, but profit won out. While guests grumble as they pay for parking, the feeling of resentment lingers. Alternatives like cruises are popular too. No parking fees. The boss regretted approving the fees after realizing it was affecting guest loyalty. Rushing, the strip's viability is hanging in the balance. Buffets, once part of the Las Vegas experience, are dying as prices have increased and guest dining habits have changed. Iconic buffets closed while pretentious food courts opened with inflated prices. Middle-class guests are no longer the demographic, upscale instead. Tourism continues to decline, including statistics of double-digit tourism declines. The boss lamented it too, but envisioned a future without them. Symbols of generosity were gone. Need to act now before the whole confidence returns from affordable to resurrect an affordable dining option. The appeal of value.
Good evening. Over 600 cars parked illegally in a Las Vegas community this morning, according to neighbors who say the county just won't help.
High rollers remain spoiled with private rooms and comms while all others pay full price. This divide is greater, and the Strip has further secured itself as a gated community of the elite. The fickleness of the whales can leave casinos vulnerable. The middle class, consistent, have been lost. The boss predicted instability, and now instability is here. The next step is the push to become welcoming again or watch it fail.
Robust visitation and strong spend per visit, coupled with a strong table games business, helped drive the highest revenue and profitability in our gaming segment in the company's history.
The impact fell on workers, while the dealer was laid off, amidst the minimal action on the floor. After 7 months of tourism slump, workers were still struggling to get by. Families are reduced to less available hours and less tips. The human cost is accumulating quickly. A sense of urgency is revealed in their storytelling. The boss even felt guilt for the policies that put workers in this precarious position. We must demand better for them and for the city they serve. Wider economic shifts suggest a Vegas-like situation, with the middle class getting squeezed everywhere. Gas fees on airlines, ticket fees on events are all the same gauge. In Vegas, it serves as a microcosm, a warning if nothing changes. The boss hopes for courage in boardrooms. A sense of urgency should throw all caution to the wind. Act now.
Now, Red Rock Casino says it's also your new neighbors contributing to the change as home construction continues on Summerlin West, Cadence, and Inspirada. Those new residents directly linked to the nearly 10% growth this year alone.
Regret is the nature of the boss's introspection. Choices continue to haunt him. He has signed off on what they did for workers, fearful of being scrutinized or replaced, but his disillusionment eventually won him over. When he retired, he was at peace without the meaningless meetings. He still loves Vegas and believes in its magic. My prediction: short-term wins means long-term falls. He hopes for urgency, of generosity. He hopes for saving the soul. The narrative is a reflection of the system, which has been for a while. That the system is set up against working people for profit at the expense of people. We are told honest stories by those like him, and those possibilities wake up the collective. Vegas is at war with itself and with neon masking the emptiness. The hollowing path remains present if nothing changes. A love for the city and magic remains possible. My verdict: the Vegas of and for the people must exist, and we must fight back urgently.
Hidden fees for hotel stays and live shows are on their way out, Denise.
That's because the Federal Trade Commission today issuing its final ruling that the advertised cost of a ticket or a stay.
There is hope in the path of reinvention, rising from the ash. Power has to change from power to value. It has to include everyone. The question remains: in doom or savable? Your stories are important. Comment below. Subscribe to stay in the loop for more revelations. The saga has taken a dark turn. Getting into history, Vegas bloomed from mob money in the 1950s, and the mob built landmarks. The mob understood show business and could draw a crowd with vivacity and many perks. Wall Street came into the picture in the 1970s when corporations began to take over. The scale of growth of the resource was much larger, but the heart was smaller. The boss lived the transition personally and experienced it himself. We are behind the eight. We need to learn what was in the past instead of repeating mistakes.
So how are the locals casinos doing? Because their market is already here.
Everybody here is so friendly, and today we're on a day date, so kids are in school. This is perfect time for us to go out.
The corporate takeovers, such as MGM, sold to Hilton, marked the turn. Public money allowed wider construction, but lost the intentional relationship with guests. Syndicate money could not compete and faded away. Wall Street killed the magic with endless definitions of efficiency. The boss admitted guilt to this era. A big hurry. We need to recognize this before it continues. Take, for example, the spread of resort fees in the 90 seconds that cover the costs related to amenities that had become convenient was spread into a charge that covered basics related to a stay. The impact to budgets was immense, particularly for families. This invasion on value had to be seen to be believed. Starting in 2023, a few state legislatures approved legislation pushing for some disclosures related to these fees. The boss saw these initial institutions dislodge their feelings about hospitality and was the first act of disloyalty to their relationship as hosts. A big hurry. Move before it catches on.
We want to make sure that they have the same opportunity as the tourists that come in to experience these one amazing world-class experience.
Parking fees emerged in 2016, led by MGM. Revenue surged, others followed suit. Convenience disappeared, impacting some groups. Attendant data shows tourism drops at the same time. The boss warned against such practices. Hurry up and fix it.
Coverage continues now. Mass deportations of undocumented workers and workplace raids at Las Vegas casinos appear unlikely.
Buffets peaked in the 90s, cheap unlimited food. Now, rippling closures as the cost of food rises and patron interest wanes. Food halls offer different types of food at a higher price. Buffet closure indicates greedy thinking has won. The boss was sad to see it disappear. Hurry up and revive the affordability of buffets provides a classy divided by upscale option for casual time or special occasions. The overseas high roller focus intensified in the 2000s. You saw it in hotels, creating more suites and luxury experiences for customers. Middle-income travelers are being filtered out and fees are piling on. Market fickleness was revealed during slumps. Steady travelers are what helped to keep the area in business. The boss sought out this risk. Hurry up and widen the appeal to save the future. The tourism data for 2025 shows dramatic drops, 11% down for June. Occupancy rates are down, rates are dropping, but fees are still being charged. Airport traffic was down 5%. Workers have laid off, dealers laid off. The boss spoke on this. It is time to move the industry forward now. Is reinvention possible? History will prove. What are your thoughts on all these happening? Do comment and ensure to like and subscribe to this video. See you on the next one.